Hi there, everyone. Welcome to my breakdown of the 11th episode of the Three-Body Problem. We'll be taking a deep dive into this episode's pivotal events and analyzing how it deviates from the book, speculating how censorship played into it, and finally tying it all together to understand the importance of the episode itself. So settle in, as this episode's a doozy. Oh, and if you like what you see, make sure you hit that like button. 'Cause who knows? Maybe becoming internet famous is the only way to save humanity from extinction. Just saying. Now to the task at hand. The 11th episode of the Three-Body Problem is the one every fan of the book has been waiting for. They thought it couldn't be done, that it would be censored, and they were kind of right. The episode begins with Ye Wenjie's experiences during the Cultural Revolution that leads to pivotal moments in the story, but waters it all down. At the core of the episode is Ba Mulin's cowardly act. It's his duplicity and moral cowardice that gives him the power over young Ye Wenjie, who only helped him write a letter. Ma Bulin had sent the letter to the Central Committee, and it was denounced as both bourgeois and counter-revolutionary. Rather than admitting he was the author, he blamed the letter on her and accuses her of writing it. The gravity of this act can become more apparent when we look at the book. In it, Ma Mulin's act of cowardice not only sinks his morality, but also dooms humanity. Bai Kei's performance in the scene where Ba Mulin lies and denounces Ye Wenjie is heartbreaking, alternating between layers of rage, fear, and guilt. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he does it anyway. On the other hand, Wang Ziwen's performance is one of quiet power, her eyes saying more than words ever could, as the little faith she had in humanity is shattered. The episode also downplays other aspects of the book, such as Ye Wenjie's time in the internment center. The cruelty of her interrogators is only shown in a matter-of-fact, officious way, instead of being actively violent. Her beating or being exposed to the cold winter weather, for example, is only shown in the form of her shivering in her cell. The show also makes Wang Miao its moral center, as he is shown telling Ye what Ba Mulin did was wrong, not what the system did was wrong. This subtle shift assigns blame to the individual instead of the government, something which can't be done in the source material. It is this kind of subtlety that keeps the show faithful to the book, while at the same time holding back enough to make the censors happy. All in all, the episode is highly reminiscent of the book, while also being heavily censored. It manages to be both faithful and careful, something which can only be achieved by a great team of writers. Ye Wenjie's brutal treatment take the main spotlight in the episode, though it's heavily downplayed. The beatings, the cold water, or her interrogator's violence are only brushed over, instead of unfurling in all its brutality. The interrogator who first treats her with kindness, then turns on a dime to become vicious and openly abusive, is only shown as being officious. It is this kind of subtlety that speaks more about what was done than actually showing it would have. Another aspect of the book that the show waters down is the guilt felt by Ye throughout the rest of the series. Her imprisonment and the lies and denunciations of Ba Mulin have a lasting effect, shaping her decisions and rationales for the rest of her life. The show does allude to this, but her internal struggle is only referenced in a few lines. Young Ye's resilience in the show is also remarkable, even though she's treated like a criminal and completely betrayed by those she trusted. She's shown looking out of the window into a starry night and says that the stars are calling her home. Finally, the elderly Ye, or Science Grandma, is shown to have already moved on. She's made peace with what has happened, and is at peace with the world. Her performance is remarkable in how she epitomizes the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The episode successfully adapts the novel while at the same time being respectful to the source material, pulling back or glossing over in some cases. The censored parts are essential to the story, as they show the darkness in the world, and their absence is felt throughout the entire episode. Wang Miao's performance in the show is extraordinary and serves multiple purposes. On the surface, he serves as a moral center for the show, where he's able to point out the wrongdoing of Ba Mulin and his actions to Ye Wenjie. He speaks out against what happened and says it's wrong and unjust. His presence and words provide a contrast to the other characters and make his opinion clear on right and wrong. However, if we analyze further, we can see that Wang Miao's character also serves as an audience stand-in. He's able to say what a lot of people watching would want to say and how they feel. He's able to vocalize the frustration and outrage that serves so many viewers. His performance enables him to understand the true horror of the situation in a way that others can't. Wang Miao also serves as the vessel through which Liu Cixin transmits his message to the audience. Through Wang Miao's inner monologues, he's able to discuss the complexity of the situation and the moral implications of certain characters' decisions, such as Ba Mulin's denouncing of Ye Wenjie. These inner monologues serve as Liu Cixin's way of communicating with his audience and getting them to think about the implications of the situation. These are only a few of Wang Miao's functions in the show. He helps move the plot along, keep the audience's attention, and serves as Liu Cixin's medium of communication. He's an invaluable character and provides a great contrast to the other characters in the show. The Central Committee's reaction was swift and devastating. In the scene where Ba Mulin first defends himself and then blames Ye Wenjie for the letter, the political officer calls it foreign propaganda, setting off a cascade of events that would bankrupt Ye Wenjie's entire family. In the book, the consequences were shown to be severe, with her father being beaten to death by teenaged Red Guards. However, in the show, any details of the family's suffering were removed, and only Ye Wenjie's shivering in her cell was shown. The Central Committee's reaction was to denounce the book as bourgeois, counter-revolutionary, and discourage anyone from learning about the real history of what happened during this era. Even though the show waters down a lot of historical events, the message still gets out, and people know when a character tells a lie and why they did it. The show is also subtly challenging the mythology of the Chinese Communist Party and its regimes as a unified continuity, when in actuality there were major changes happening. Even though the Cultural Revolution happened under a different government in terms of ideology and personnel, the show implies it was a continuation of repressive government policies. It's the same kind of message Liu Cixin conveyed in the book, even though he used explicit violence and brutality to do so. The show manages to tackle taboo topics while still conveying some of the story's original meaning. Not only that, but it also sets up the audience for what will happen next in the series. The name of the episode, The Shadow from the Past, implies that the past will have a weighty effect on the future. It seems that the showrunners are hinting that the characters will have to face the consequences of their choices in past and spend the rest of the series atoning for them. By using a subtle and nuanced approach, the show is able to tell the story that the book did while circumventing some censorship and avoiding any potential legal issues. Even though much of the violence and horror of the story is removed, the show still manages to tell the story while raising difficult questions that set up the audience for what is to come. The censorship in the 11th episode of The Three-Body Problem waters down the story, leaving out pivotal moments and moral dilemmas. Even though the show skipped over much of the brutalities of the Cultural Revolution and its aftermath, this is to be expected. It is difficult to portray the past honestly in times where the regime is trying to maintain a continuous narrative. Some scenes in the episode were also heavily reshot for censoring purposes. Most notable were the interrogation scenes, where the interrogator's violence was completely cut out. This leaves one to wonder if this was done in order to protect the government's image or to soften the blow of the Cultural Revolution, so as not to risk any current opening up of re-examination or memories of exactly what happened. The elderly Ye Wenjie, or Science Grandma, is seen in the episode saying that time has made past tragedies fade away. This could also be seen as a nod to censorship, as time passing could be taken as a way to soften the harshness of past events. The book asterisk. The Three-Body Problem asterisk depicted events brutally honestly, without any attempt to water anything down. This is a stark contrast to the show, which cuts away or heavily edits certain scenes for censoring purposes. This makes the message more palatable for the current regime, but it does alter the story's original meaning. The youth of China may not be able to fully comprehend the impact of the Cultural Revolution from the show, but this does not render it completely useless. The show still carries the message of how individual choices can shape history, even if it does it in a much more subtle way compared to the book. The Chinese government may admit the Cultural Revolution was a mistake, but doesn't want its younger citizens to be exposed to the full brutality of the past. This censorship helps to maintain the current regime and keep the idea of one continuous narrative in place. The TV series manages to tell the whole story in a more palatable way, one aimed at conveying the message of the book in a way younger audiences will accept. The episode also avoids condemning the government of the time. Instead, it targets the act of individual moral cowardice, as seen in Ba Mulin's case, as the one wrong done in the episode. The blame rests squarely on him, not on the regime that made that kind of moral cowardice possible. Such a viewpoint on the Cultural Revolution is easier for the current regime to accept, as the event served as a milestone in the path of China wanting to become an economic powerhouse. This shift in perception does not just help the current regime's image, but it also shows how a certain idea of good and bad changes from generation to generation. Young people today may not realize the trauma of the Cultural Revolution, but would be able to comprehend that a single human action can have drastic implications. The half-hour episode may not be enough to understand the implications of the Cultural Revolution, but it might be the first step one can take in understanding it. It is unknown whether the show's creators intended the message to be understood by the viewers in such a way, or if it was a conscious effort to adhere to the regime's restrictions. Nevertheless, the importance of an individual's choice does come through in the show, albeit in a more subtle way than the original novel. The sacrifice of a few poetic details has resulted in a message clear enough to be accepted by the current regime, while still faithful enough to the original material. The 11th episode of Asterisk. The Three-Body Problem Asterisk is both a faithful and an adapted version of the original novel, one that is suitable for the current Chinese regime, yet still conveys the original message. The episode manages to show the complexities of life during the Cultural Revolution, while still avoiding direct confrontation with the Chinese government. This adaptation is a testament to the skill of the show's creators and the writing of the original novel by Liu Cixin. It is true that such heavy censorship was not what the author intended in his original novel, and parts of the story were lost in the adaptation. However, such restrictions at least ensure that the political oppressive acts during the Cultural Revolution will never be forgotten. Yet, at the same time, the message that individuals have the power to make a difference still remains intact. It is clear that Asterisk the Three-Body Problem Asterisk is an ambitious show that continually pushes the boundaries of what can be done in television. It is shows like this that keep people engaged and make them curious to find out what happens next. So, if you have yet to understand the moral questions posed by the series and the mysteries it contains, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest developments.